Good day, everyone. I am Vincent Edward A. Santa Clara from Ateneo Naga University, and welcome to this ADL sharing on e-lessons curating asynchronous learning tasks. We only have 15 minutes for this session, so let's proceed already with the objectives for today. Number one, I will be I will be providing you some context on using the e-lessons. Number two, relate ADL principles to my practice. Number three, demonstrate how to create one. And number four, share insights by my students who have used the e-lessons in the previous school year. Now, some context first. I divided it into three parts. Number one, student participation and attendance. Number two, assessment concerns. And number three, motivation of students. In the first category, here I zeroed in on interaction, internet access, and limited time. Because we have only a limited time during synchronous sessions, a student interaction is also somehow restricted. We should be making use of the synchronous time more on consultation. But in the first few months that we had this online learning, I think teachers had some time management issues, including myself. And of course, the problem when it comes to connectivity of the students, the internet access would also be limiting others in not just participating, not just in engaging in the full asynchronous session, but as well as joining in the class. So that's some concern that I really wanted to address, how to provide some assistance to those students who were not able to join the synchronous classes. The next would be assessment concerns. So in the general class performance, I think I'm talking about how I could picture out as well the performance of the class, and also how to give them some voice in participating in the online session. So some students may be quite embarrassed in sharing, or quite shy rather, in sharing their reflection. So through this one, I was able to give them a platform to impart their insights. And lastly, we have motivation of students, the Moodle-based learning management system that we had last year, which had certain challenges for both teachers and students, especially when it comes to having them engage in class, and it affected how they would be answering the tasks as well. So hopefully this context would somehow situate or establish why I get to come up with the e-lessons. But I've also considered number one, principles from the ADL, and number two, learning motivation. So in the ADL principles, we have this framework, and here I zeroed in on the three C's of online learning: content, coach, and community. You're probably familiar with this video here, and it gives us basically the four tips in content curation: keeping things bite-sized, getting some inspiration, going audiovisual, and setting up a deep dive. So somehow I was able to relate this with the ARCS model by John Keller, who says that in order for us to fully engage the students or motivate the students, especially in like an online class, we should be catering to certain components like attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. So what is the e-lesson? The e-lesson is basically a Google form with video recordings in it, and it's designed to present lessons like how how I would be doing it in class. So here I would be needing the module. Okay, so in a little while I'm gonna show you the sample of the e-lesson. So, but before we go to that, let's go to some considerations when crafting the e-lessons. Number one, the instructional materials that you will be using, and number two, technology tools that are available. So for the first part, you have to have your learning plan. We patterned our lesson presentation using the IPP format, or the Ignition Pedagogical Paradigm format. And I've also prepared slideshows and also the other tasks that I would be needing. So in the learning plan, I would be referring to my module here. So here's my module. I created this one using Canva, and using Canva is very helpful because I was able as well to easily convert them into slides. So here is the sample of the slides that I have created using Canva. So you could see that I was very, it was easy for me rather to come up with this particular slide. Okay, so much for that. The other tasks, so if you have other tasks, you could prepare some links for the student to access. Now, regarding the technological tools, I would basically recommend that you look for good screen recording or video editing apps. So like, for example, we have video in our school, but before we purchased video, I used Loom recording, and it's a very good screen recording online app. Also, Google apps were, which we are very much familiar with, like forms, sheets, and sites would be utilized in this e-lesson. Some additional apps, I use Canva Please for creating your designs, like modules and other design-related items. I also used Autocrat and Awesome Tables. You may look at YouTube for some of the videos on how to use them. I used the Autocrat to generate reports for my students' parents, and Awesome Tables will be used in my Google Sites. Later, I'm going to show you how I utilize that. So let's have a walkthrough first of the e-lesson. The e-lesson is basically a Google form. So as I've shared with you earlier. So I'm having here the e-lesson, which I have answered already. All right. And as you can see, I have certain sections for this one. So this is the preliminary section where I ask certain information from the students. And there's also a preview. Okay. And as you can see, I have here certain labels for each section, like context in this case. Well, earlier I told you that we patterned our lessons or our lesson presentation using the ITP format. So notice that this one begins with context, then it would be followed by content, tasks, and reflection. We modified it in the way we present the lessons. Okay, so here I get to share with them some quick videos to help them get engaged with the lesson, and I would basically be asking them certain questions or giving them certain activities. Okay, and then I would ask them as well to open some slides so that while they're answering this Google form, they could also refer to the slides if they would want to. So at certain sections, I would be asking them if they are ready and asking them certain questions. So let's take a look at some parts. Okay, so here for the content, usually the content is the one that would have the longest part of all the sections for the IPP. So we have here the elements of fiction writing. So there's a video there. And if in any case my students are not able to watch the video fully, I can still include here the images from the slides using Canva. As you can see, these have been utilized in the video. So in the video though, I would be sharing some more information which are helpful for the students to really appreciate the concept, but basically everything that I have shared would be here. Okay, and then I would be preparing some links for them that they should be they should have somehow read prior to this session so that they could really get to understand the discussion. And then of course, let's go to this probably would be the last one. So character, okay, and then I would be asking them certain comprehension questions, which would allow them to really check their understanding. So in answering this one, they're not just like watching the video, they're also having some comprehension questions to check how they're doing. And there's also a question intended to ask if things are clear or if they have any specific question to ask. Once they have submitted this Google form, of course, as you may know in the Google Sheets, I would already get an idea of how many students have questions or how were they able to get certain items here. Okay, so those things will of course be included there. So just to, all right, so there you have it. So there we um, have the e-lesson demonstration. Okay, and for the tasks, we actually this section would just give them a preview. Okay, so here would be the preview of the tasks, and uh, there we have the links. All right, so they just have to click them, and they will be uh, proceeding to another Google form, perhaps. Okay, but basically this one will suffice for the synchronous discussion, which they should have had at a certain time. Now, even when they're not able to like attend the synchronous session because I have this one, it's as if they're already uh, participating in the lesson. Okay, so I've also allowed them to edit their responses if they need to change anything, and allowing them to view their score would of course help them to check their um, performance. Okay, and if they want to again to change anything, so they could just go to the edit response field. Okay, let's now go to the walkthrough of our class website. So usually I would also be asking certain um, inputs to be submitted, and the website, although this would be like an extension of the e-lesson, which just to give you a preview, this is one way as well that we can curate the lessons for the students. So let me just have here for you, okay, a preview of the lesson. So here, once they were able to answer the questions, I would be giving them a certain information, like say, um, how many got certain items correctly, and some realizations would be shared there as well. And here, I have embedded as well the Google Drive where they could practically have the outputs displayed. So this is from the Cranes lesson that we have, a short story from Korea. Okay, and here, using awesome tables, I can have them like do this particular um, carousel of pictures, and I can picture their items. So in this portion, they could also like just check their LG and nicknames so that they could look for their output. So this section as well provides them a way to somehow um, not really compare, but get some inspiration from others on how to proceed with their outputs. Okay, so that's for our class website. Now let's just go to the advantages of the e-lesson space in my students. So let me just very briefly give some of the comments that came from my students. So for them, they saw that this was giving them less hassle when answering as compared to our Moodle-based LMS. Um, this one also gives them like more useful information, and it looks a lot clearer probably than the one that is presented in the Moodle. And then for them, it's very convenient and flexible because as it's in used in Google Form, as it is using Google Form rather, they can just use their phones for this one. And for them, it helps promote active and independent learning as well. So for most of them, they see that it's very fast and very easy to answer. And there's one that I really like. They start One said he or she started appreciating and enjoyed reading short stories and poems because of it. Okay, and there are also disadvantages, of course. So um, in if you're familiar with how Google Form works, so it doesn't really save your outputs once you have closed a tab. So for me, I would really like them to like stick to the schedule that they have for an asynchronous session. So it's like pretty much like doable in that time. So as one says here, it requires self-motivation and proper time management skills. So if they haven't developed that yet, maybe this could help them like um, develop these skills. And someone said it's too many things to answer, so it can waste some time, but overall it's very good. Uh, Maybe the person would is saying here that but because it's like a lesson intended really for the synchronous class, they could have um, they're actually having the questions that I would be asking them. So it's like really they're like having the lesson for a particular topic. All right. Now, hopefully, I was able to achieve these objectives, and you may also refer to the references that we have here, or later during the Q&A, you can ask them. So thank you very much for joining me in this particular presentation. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sir Vince. I think now we can proceed to our Q&A. To our participants, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, or if you'd rather that you type in your question, feel free to chat them in and I can read them out loud. So I've enabled all of you to be able to unmute yourself. So feel free to raise any questions, and Sir Vince, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sir Stanley. Good afternoon, everyone. While waiting probably for some questions, I'm sharing with you in the chat box the website, which you may also like use as reference when um, if you're interested in using Google Sites. Okay, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Sir Stanley, is it okay that I share my screen?
Yes, sure, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, since I've shared already the class website screen, can you check, please, Sir Stanley, if you can see it po? The class
Yes, we
website.
can see it.
Thank you. So, well, this is an extension that I have of the e-lesson. So, other than just the Google form, which, well, I could practically embed here as well. The Google Sites is one more great idea that you can use to basically create your asynchronous tasks. So as you can see here, everyone, I have like everything, like say for a particular topic that I wanted to explore placed here already. So here I've shared the video, the slides of the video, some gaining motivation or gaining attention activities like a map, a virtual map, and then just like what I've shared earlier, that I've had some, what do you call this? I'm using the awesome tables. It helps me to come up with this like summary of results for the students. So here, this is what I've shared earlier in the video, and here I also would be able to place or exhibit some of the outputs of the students, which could help not just um, serve as an evidence of their learning, but also like to promote the school. So it's hopefully hitting two birds with one stone. So if you don't have any question just yet, maybe this one can serve as something that a reference if you may want to explore your curation of asynchronous tasks. Okay po.
If you prefer your question to be anonymous, you can direct your question to me personally, and then I can read it out loud.
Sir Stanley, I'll stop sharing na po.
Sure, sir. Okay, it looks like we have a comment from Miss Nikki Mendoza. Hi, sorry, I missed out on the four things we should remember in effectively curating e-lessons. Tama ba? What were the last two? Keep it bite-sized, get some meme inspiration, and she's asking for the last two.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm going to share the video in a little while, but the last two would be go audio visual, and then the other one would be set up a deep dive. So those are the four tips when creating e-lessons, which I hope I was also able to address in the e-lesson, like in the way that I crafted the Google form. So because sometimes I would just be do you call this? What I noticed is that some teachers would just be giving Google Forms with some questions, but when I ask some students, it appears that they um, would not be totally engaged in it. So I'm really hoping that that could have helped them. Um, I hope that satisfied your question po, Miss Nikki or Nikki. Okay, thank you po. Um,
We also have another question, Sir Vince. So
yes
the
po.
question asks, the answers displayed on the Google sites were collected from the Google form, right?
Yes po. They were ano po the if you're asking about the one that you have the artworks of the students, they have or Google Form has this file upload format, and um, it automatically collates the outputs in a Google Drive, and in Google Sites you can also like embed the whole Google Drive folder for that, and you can also like um, work on it or display that or exhibit that for the class. I hope that satisfied your answer po. Your question rather.
We also have an anonymous question, and I will read it. Is it possible for students to save their progress in the Google form, or are they supposed to finish it in a single setting? I noticed kasi that the Google form is quite long. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's intended for a synchronous class that is um, going to serve as like the whole lesson for the whole week. So normally I would be telling my students, okay, you have to really devote like time for this one. So if you may have noticed, there are certain like um, uh, signals that this form, for example, is like doable in 30 to 40 minutes. And normally, I also, some students may finish it in less than 20 minutes. But there are those who would really find, I don't know, would say that it's taking them too long. But then again, they would realize that it's a little long because everything that I could um, learn is already there. However, in the question that can since it's too long, can they just like something like pause it for a while? There's a certain setting which you can allow them to submit already, but because they can edit their response, they can like return to that particular um, form again and go to the area or go to that particular part where they haven't finished anything yet. So I tried that as well, and it also helped those who say were not or had some or had been unavailable for some time. But a certain disadvantage of that one is some students get to forget going back to answering the e-lesson. So it's like I would really tell them you have to really make sure that you devote a time. So since you cannot attend the synchronous session, um, you really have to make time for this one. So anyway, that would already be providing the lessons for the rest of the week. So they can also like return to that to review things. So I hope that satisfied your question po. Yes po.
Thank you for
Um,
that, Sir Vince. The next question asks, now that you learned about the disadvantages of e-lessons as shared by your students, how will you make an adjustment? Will you make it less tasks because your students said there were many tasks to accomplish?
okay, thank you for that question po. Well, actually, the that's one of the initial reactions of the students, um, because they would think that other than the synchronous class, they have to finish this one. But I would tell them that on the synchronous class, it's more like it will be for a consultation, which the ADL really like pushes for that one. So regarding the task completion, if you may notice, the other links have been like spread out, or like the other tasks have just been provided for in links. So they may at their convenient time work on that particular task. So it's like the one that I have presented to you, which on an average, the students were able to finish that in like 20 minutes, although I said it's doable in like 40 minutes. Um, Depending on the schedule that you have prepared for them, you may be able to like really just direct them on when to finish or accomplish certain tasks. But if I may incorporate something based on this question, probably I could add something like um, when a certain task should be ideally accomplished. So thank you, Mr. Marcelino. Um, I also learned something from your question.
We have another anonymous question, Sir Vince. So first day start, thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experience. May I just ask how much time do you usually allot in curating a single form like the one you presented?
Thank you po. Well, at the beginning, I think it took me like an hour, probably because of the video recordings, because I'm not very used to doing that. But I get to like finish it in 30 to 45 minutes for the rest of the outputs, especially if I already have the lesson plan. So it's very important that you stick to like the lesson plan that you have. As you've seen earlier, I've shared as well the module that I have made. So this one, because in our school we have like a modular um, setup as well. So although everybody receives a module, most of the students are still enjoyed in the online class. So that's very much helpful for me to like uh, expedite the way I create or curate the asynchronous tasks for my students. So I hope that satisfied the question po, Sir Stanley.
Thank you for that, Sir Vince. And if it's okay with everyone, we'll be capping off with the last question since it's 3:30. So the last question or the last comment, thank you, sir. Follow-up question. Do you still utilize your Moodle LMS when it seems the Google site already serves that purpose? Is the LMS required by your school admin or you're free to use other sites?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Well, actually, the students, as I mentioned earlier, one of the considerations why I resorted to the e-lessons is because the way that our Moodle-based learning management system somewhat gave challenges to the way students are engaging in the uh, lesson completion, because our Moodle based LMS was like a little bland, if I may describe it. And it's a little like outdated. Well, I don't know for the other learning managements which are also Moodle based, but the one that we have is a bit um, uh, a bit boring as what students would be saying. But given that we have a certain freedom on using the Google apps, since our institution would be using Google Suite, um, I very much like took advantage of what is available, and because of that, I've also presented a way to the school um, to utilize really the Google apps for education. So um, it's like right now though we're like we didn't anymore subscribe to the previous Moodle that we have, although we're still um, having our own um, school initiated Moodle based LMS. We're now like integrating things. So the Google form that you've seen, it has an embed function. So if you're still using Moodle in your um, LMSs, you please try to look for the embed function. Okay, because that one will be uh, because, like for example, for the Google Form, since it can be embedded anywhere, like in a Moodle ecosystem, you can also integrate things in that element. So I hope that uh, that could give you an idea on how to like um, what do you call this? Make your Moodle LMS a little more engaging to the students po. So just very quickly, Sir Stanley, I'm just going to share the video po that is about the content curation. This is from ADL. So hopefully you can have this as your like learning takeaway from this session. Sir Stanley?
Oh, I think you should I send it to everyone, sir? I think you directed it
Ah,
to
okay. All right. Yeah.
I can send it to everyone.
Okay
Oh,
po.
there we go.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you
very
po.
much, Sir Vince, and thank you
Thank you very
everyone
much po.
to the
Thank you
participants.
everyone po.
Thank you, Sir Vince, and to our participants. I'm sure they had a lot to learn from your lecture, and I'm pretty sure what their lessons, their learnings, they will be applying to their own practice as educators. So now we will be ending the first session, and we will be proceeding to our next session, um, by Sir Mark Carlo. Although it will still start at 3:40 p.m. So we have around 7 minutes. But if you need to move to another room, feel free to leave this room and move. If you wish to stay, you may also do so. So thank you so much, and we will see you in around 6 minutes. Thank you.